The New South Wales hospital system has been reeling in recent months from a series of medical negligence cases. Symptomatic of the problem has been a failure by medical staff to respond to patients' complaints. In some cases, it's resulted in death. After Pat Skinner went under the knife at Sydney's St George Hospital to have part of her colon removed, she was given a clean bill of health. But over the next 18 months, when she complained of severe abdominal pain, she was told she was recovering. It was only after insisting on having an X-ray that she discovered a pair of 17-centimetre surgical scissors had been left inside her. But having made that discovery, she's now had to go through another 18-month nightmare trying to get an adequate explanation, let alone compensation. Andrew Gagan reports.
I believe that Pat still suffers, and I've said to many people that she wasn't a patient, she was a victim.
Pat Skinner knew the surgery to remove part of the colon would be painful. But she was prepared to put up with the discomfort. After all, she'd had intestinal problems, and her specialist at Sydney's St George Hospital, Dr David Lebowski, warned her that the polyps in her colon could be cancerous.
The day I came out, he came round and he said, "Well, I've got good news for you. It wasn't cancerous." And I said, "Oh, that's great, and I've got good news for you. My system's working."
But as we shall see, Pat Skinner's good news would be short-lived. Her operation had been carried out by a hospital registrar who's no longer at St George. A mistake on the operating table would leave her in pain for the next 18 months and seriously threatened the health of the 69-year-old.
The pain went for a while, and then I started to get pains back again, a different type of pain. We were going over a bump in the car and I'd be screaming, and Don would be saying, "What's wrong with you?" And I'd say, "Well, it's just so painful, just don't go over a bump."
Pat Skinner complained to her specialist and her GP. She couldn't stand, sit or lie down without being in extreme pain.
I did complain and I was told, well, it takes time. This was the thing I kept hearing, this takes time to recover. I think they thought that, maybe I was, making a fuss. Yeah, I think, yeah.
And you felt guilty about that?
Yeah, I think they felt, you're going through depression.
Pat Skinner was put on antidepressants and given counselling, which was particularly galling given that she'd worked as a professional grief counsellor herself.
I thought, well, if anybody should be able to handle this, I should.
However, Pat Skinner could bear the pain no longer and went back to her GP.
So I went back to see my doctor again and I said, "Look," I just feel like I've been in a fight. I've fallen on the floor and somebody's been kicking me with steel cat boots. I said, "I think my tailbone is crumbling." So she said, "OK, well, we'll send you up for an X-ray."
You said, "I'd like an X-ray."
Yeah, that's right, I did. I said,
My wife instigated the X-ray. That's the amazing thing, that in all this time, not one person would suggest a fundamental thing like an X-ray.
No.
Finally, an answer to the mystery. There, inside her abdomen, was a pair of 17-centimetre surgical scissors.
I was just in tears. I was just, it was just such a shock.
Pat Skinner had been living with the scissors inside her for a year and a half. It's little wonder she felt that her tailbone was crumbling. The razor-sharp instrument, slightly open, had wedged itself up against her coccyx.
You find that difficult to look at, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Why is that?
I just can't believe that, I had those things inside me for such a long time.
I just think it's obscene. It's just, that's the only way I can describe it. To see such a thing inside a person and where they are, it's just terrible.
An identical pair of scissors reveals just how large and potentially deadly the surgical instrument could be.
How can you not see them? How can you not see them? And if you haven't seen them, doesn't someone look around and say, "Where's the scissors?"
Within hours of discovering the scissors, Pat Skinner was back on the operating table at St George Hospital where the mistake had been made. Again, she was undergoing major surgery. This time, the operation was performed by her specialist, Dr Lebowski.
Tissue had grown over the point of the scissors and they couldn't remove the scissors without removing bowel as well. He explained that, but he said she should return to her normal functioning. There should be no effect. He was quite strong about this, and I thought, well, these are early days. How does he know that?
Pat and Don Skinner expected St George Hospital would apologise as well as offer an explanation and compensation for Pat's suffering. They got the apology from Dr Lebowski.
And he said, well, the system normally works very well. Large items are not counted because items like scissors are considered too big to lose. And I said, well, that's a nonsense. And he said, well, yes, obviously this has proven that, that doesn't work.
But to the Skinners' astonishment, the hospital did not admit liability.
And we did ask if we could talk to somebody that was in the operating theatre on that day that could perhaps give us some closure. But nobody wanted to talk to us or was able to talk to us. None of those 8 people was able to talk to us. And I think I found that really hurtful, really, distressing.
In a statement to the 7:30 report, St George Hospital says the surgeon primarily responsible for Pat Skinner's care, Dr Lebowski, met with her and that
the hospital has responded to all inquiries made by Mr and Mrs Skinner.
the Skinners made an official complaint to the New South Wales Healthcare Complaints Commission, which was subsequently referred to the South Eastern Sydney Area Health Service. The service then, to the further amazement of the Skinners, instructed St George Hospital to conduct the investigation. The Skinners were informed that their complaint had prompted a review of the standard procedures for handling all surgical instruments in New South Wales. Yet a New South Wales Health Department letter to the Skinners stated that
the investigation concluded that the procedures were correctly followed and that there was no definitive explanation as to how the incident occurred.
only now, a further 18 months after the scissors were removed, has the hospital admitted a breach of duty of care. But there's a catch.
The defendant says, yes, we did these things that were wrong, but we put you to proof as to the extent of your loss and damage.
St George Hospital is asking Pat Skinner to prove to a court that she suffered an impairment to her health that is at least 15% of the most extreme case.
There is a threshold that you have to cross before you have any entitlement to what we call general damages or your non-economic loss. Because you're a retiree, Pat, you're not suffering an income loss, and what your damages are really about are the pain and suffering.
2 years ago, the New South Wales Civil Liability Act was changed, fixing the maximum amount of damages for non-economic loss at $350,000.
Non-economic losses are all those things other than hospital and medical expenses, loss of earning capacity, and some of them are often quite intangible, like pain, suffering, loss of amenity.
Reg Greycar is a professor of law at Sydney University and claims that very few people injured by negligence successfully recover damages. She cites research from the British Medical Association, which indicates there's often a more effective alternative to legal action.
Clients who get clear explanations, and indeed in some situations where appropriate apologies, are far less likely to bring legal action or to seek compensation.
In the event that you don't cross that threshold, penalties that would operate against you in costs.
The Skinners also face a $10,000 limit on claims for legal costs. Their legal bill could climb above $50,000.
There's no safety net for people that have got really genuine claims, because it's been changed in such a way that even if you win a case, you can lose, in that you're still landed with a huge legal costs.
Pat Skinner still doesn't know the extent of the damage caused by the scissors, but both she and her husband know the mistake has for the past 2 years ruined their retirement.
At our age, there is a window of opportunity, but it's pretty small, or it gets smaller. So in our minds, we feel that we've missed this opportunity. That was 2 years or more of our lives taken out through no fault of our own.
Just don't know how you do measure the cost of all that. Andrew Gagan with that report.